You guys know what time it is. Get strapped in and ready for some good times. This is the Blowedoutpodcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is I, your fatty with a natty, loyal host, as always. Seems like the only host anymore, but that's all right. These midweek sessions kind of have a way of doing that. I'm on a completely different timeline than most normal human beings, so it is what it is. We'll get there sooner or later. Anyhow, how's everybody doing? Everybody doing all right? Good. I will give you fair warning that Maddie without a natty just finished up a sweet little table for the office / studio, / whatever we're calling it these days. And it still reeks of drying lacquer. So if I get a little bit loopier than normal, just know that, I'm in here enjoying the fumes. I'm all right with it. They don't bother me, but if I start slurring my words, I blame the flip-flops for my roadside aerobics, just so you know. I suppose we could jump right into things by talking about the Carmelo Anthony trial that just wrapped up this evening. For those of you who don't know, that's the kid who at the time was 17 years old, black kid who at a football game decided, that for some reason, at a high school football game, you need a knife. It's weird. I played high school football, and I don't recall ever taking a knife. And for those of you who know, or maybe didn't know, when I played foosball, which is weird because now I can't stand it, but I think I got my fair share while I was in Ohio. And as a undermelanated human, we played in Dayton, Ohio, which is, it's right up there with super cool places in Ohio that as an undermelanated human, I may feel compelled to take a knife. Or like I may need to, yet I still didn't. So, found guilty of murder, not manslaughter. I mean, in all fairness, he stabbed a kid to death at a high school football game. Apparently, there was some argument after he took shelter in their team's tent, I guess, during a rain delay. And apparently they got into an argument, and for some reason he felt like he was in fear for his life during said argument. So he stabbed this kid to death and has been claiming self-defense. So now everybody's losing their minds because he was convicted or found guilty of murder and sentenced to 35 years in the Texas correctional system. And everybody's losing their minds because none of the jurors were black, apparently. And also that because he was a black kid, he clearly must be innocent. Or because it's, guys, man, the comments are wild on this. Apparently, because he was a black kid, it's all us crackers against him. Or those of us who are crackers, I guess. As a father of a half-black son, I feel confident and comfortable in saying that if my son did some dumb shit like stab a kid to death, I don't give a shit what color Either of them are. So, regardless of whether or not there were any black people on the jury, it was literally 3 hours, cut and dried. Not one juror had an issue with it. Also, if I'm not mistaken, this was in Austin, which is pretty blue, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I don't care. If my kid did some shit like that, how could I stand up and say that? You know, now granted, my kid's getting pretty yoked up, and whether or not he actually knows how to fight, I have, no qualms about him, even if he has shitty technique and has no clue what he's doing. Guarantee the kid can hit pretty hard. And if it was an argument with a whole bunch of other people there, then, again, I don't understand why you thought the need to pull a knife, let alone stab the kid. Now, in all fairness, I don't know the details. I wasn't there. Neither were, I assume, all of you, or at least 99.9% of all of you guys listening, because if anyone is listening that was there, it's going to be a handful of people, maybe 2 handfuls of people. But at the same time, that's just not how it works. Unless this kid had a pipe, which, again, I don't know. Maybe he had a lead pipe, and he got in a couple good swings on this kid. I don't know. But I assume that would have come out during testimony. And also, what did come out during testimony is it sounds like this Carmelo Anthony kid was bragging about it and seemingly beaming about it. So, why is it that if all these things have come to light, why is it that there is at least a percentage, I won't say a large percentage, because I don't think it is, but there is a percentage of black folks who have come out and been quoted as saying that they don't care what the circumstances are. They'll stand behind the black kid. They don't care if anyone thinks he's guilty or not. They'll stand with him. Like, what? I don't understand that. Where is the logic? If a kid stabs another kid, or if a dude stabs another dude, or a chick stabs another chick, or any combination of those, and there isn't some sort of holy shit, cut and dried, you're damn right, that was in self-defense, he or she had a pipe or a gun or a knife also, why the hell would anyone stand or come right out and publicly say they're going to stand behind them? How does that make any sense? This is where the division is really, really destroying this country. We've talked about it a million times, about the political division, but for the love of God, why is there such division between black and white, or brown and white, or brown and black, or black and yellow, and why? Why? It's just like, we could go on about this forever, guys. You already know this. But on what planet do you look at someone and say, yep, guilty, and not think to yourself, I don't give a shit what color they are. They did it. They did it in the wrong. Therefore, they're wrong. Like, this is some crazy ass. And of course, also in the comments, I've just had a woman earlier to me on one of my comments, something comparing it to George Floyd. How is this apples and apples? I ask. I implored her to tell me how that is apples and apples, or how it's relevant in this case. And she said that that is what she expected me to say. And I didn't say anything about George Floyd being guilty. I didn't say anything about Chauvin being guilty. I didn't say anything about Rodney King. I didn't say anything about anybody, about anything. No Charlie Kirk. No, but you... Come on. This is just dumb. It's just dumb. How the hell... Again, this is the problem. For whatever reason, we have decided that it's everybody against everybody. We don't give a shit what color you are, what political affiliation. It's, if it ain't me against me, then it's everybody else against me. I don't care. Period. Plain and simple. How does that make sense to anyone? And how, even a bigger question, how the hell does anyone expect for things to ever go back to semi-normal when we can't even be on the same page about cut and dried shit? Heck, guys, this just blows my mind. Honestly, I don't get it. You know, it would be one thing if, let's say, for instance, I was to go out and there was a dude, let's just say a dude. Doesn't even matter what color a dude, right? Or political affiliation, ethnicity, culture, whatever. But breaking into my car out in the driveway, right? So, of course, I hear a noise or my cameras go off or whatever. So I go out there to investigate, or I see it on the camera and I see that it's a person breaking into my car. Well, it's not a big secret that I'm going to go out there with, the dog and probably more, and I'll just leave it at that. But, so this person, let's say, because it doesn't have to be a dude. Sorry, that was bad on my part. It doesn't even have to be a dude. A person, a human being breaking into my vehicle maliciously, because that's what it is, right? And I call them out and I say, hey, and rather than turning and beating feet because they were caught trying to break into my car or smashing my window and I catch them during the act. But let's just say I have the dog and possibly something else. And let's say if they're not smart enough to follow my commands, to prone out until the authorities arrive, let's say they decide to turn and come at me with whatever they're using to break in or break my windows, right? Maybe it's a bat. Maybe it's a brick. Who knows? Maybe it's God knows what. But let's say they decide to turn and come at me. And if the dog doesn't get them first, then I have to make the split-second decision on what I'm going to do after that. And if that magical sound that we can all use our imaginations and guess what magical sound I'm talking about that, typically stops anyone dead in their tracks, and that was not a pun, if that sound alone didn't do the trick, then I have to decide, okay, and from my previous many, many years of dealing with being a concealed carry permit holder and also trying fairly diligently to follow the laws surrounding that act, then I have to decide, okay, once upon a time I was told that I'm a big guy, right? And so if a little scrawny dude comes at me with fists and I use a weapon against that person, it's going to end poorly for me because I'm going to have a hard time proving in court that big old me couldn't subdue little old scrawny dude or chick with fists alone or size alone, right? So then I go, okay, well, maybe he's got a tire iron, right? Also been conveyed to me many times over the past couple decades. It's been that long. I'm old. And I've had it for a long time. It's been conveyed to me that, okay, even if he or she has a tire iron, or them, man, I'm really messing this one up. If they have a tire iron, or a golf club, or a baseball bat, if I can safely remove myself from being struck with said weapon, or, what they are using as a weapon, then I could possibly still be in the wrong and be held for manslaughter or murder if I chose to discharge a weapon into said person because they were, say, wildly swinging a golf club. Not hitting me, just swinging, right? Threatening. But at that point, in Utah, I am allowed to draw down on them to see if that stops them. But let's say it doesn't, okay? Then let's say that big ol' me, and granted, for those of you who know, or those of you who have seen, I'm 6 foot and a lot of pounds. I'm a giant human. Granted, I'm getting old, so, I ain't real great in the fighting arena anymore. Not necessarily that I ever was, but now everything hurts, and I'm getting kind of slow, and I really don't want to get in a fight. So what if that doesn't work? Then what? Let's say this person gets in a couple of good whacks on me with a golf club, okay? In the shoulder, in the abdomen, in the thigh, somewhere where it hurts like hell and I may go down to the ground, but not incapacitated, right? It's not hitting me in the brain or in the, in the side of the head where I may zoink and go night-night, right? Then what? At that point, because I'll get there, I promise. Because in that moment, now I go, shit, okay, now I'm on the ground, and this dude may or may not be over top of me, or person, sorry. They may now be over top of me, getting ready to swing again. And if now I'm bleeding from the side of the head, at what point am I justified in using my, air quote, golf club? Right? It's food for thought, honestly. Because, sadly, even if that was the case, even if I took one to the side of the head, and now I'm bleeding out, and I'm seeing stars, and I got one eye kind of half cocked open, and I'm just barely capable enough of stopping this person from doing it again, I still have to think about the fact of, okay, now if I use my quote-unquote golf club back, there's a solid chance that I will go to prison, or could, right? There's an even greater chance that if I, let's say, unalive this person because they're beating me with the intent of unaliving me, right? There's a solid chance that their family or anyone who cares about them could still sue me civilly for literally everything I own and win. What in God's name have we come to? How is that right on any planet? And this was not a debate about that, but all of those things have to go through my head in that instance. Because I'm not in my house or in my car, which in Utah is considered, protected under the castle law. So, but if it's just out in the driveway or on the front porch or on the back deck or whatever, then all of those things become factors. And now I could lose everything. I could lose literally everything I have because someone was trying to beat me, possibly to death, to take my stuff. That's wrong on all counts. Just period, plain across the board. And there have been a lot of cases like this over the last couple of years where these turds, families, lots of apostrophes in there, have sued and won. That poor old guy just a little while back that was like 80 years old and the kids were kicking in his front door and he shot him through the door because he's 80 and he doesn't know what the hell's going on. He just knows that somebody's kicking in his front door and he blasts the kid and his family is allowed to sue him. And I would have to pull up the quote, but his mother stood on the stand and screamed and cried that all he was trying to do was rob you, and you had to go and kill him, you piece of shit, yada, yada, yada. What the fuck? What? All he was doing was trying to rob you. Why couldn't you have just let him? No. Absolutely not. Not on my watch. Shouldn't be on any of yours either. Absolutely not. I don't give a shit. That is the most ridiculous thing I have probably ever heard, other than some, sovereign citizen mess. But the fact that you're going to try and sue me because your kid got shot breaking and entering my house because all he was trying to do was rob me, why didn't I just let him? No. Nah, sorry. That don't fly. Not here, and it shouldn't fly anywhere. Sorry. One of the places that also really bothers me is all the places where that's not even an option. And in all fairness, I don't know a whole lot. I know there's a lot of you guys listening all around the globe. If you're in one of the places that's not even an option, or to try and or to have to make that decision, I'm sorry, guys. That shouldn't be okay on any planet. I just don't. I can't wrap my head around that. Also, just like the cities where guns are illegal and the countries where guns are illegal, that's not necessarily working out real well for any of those places, is it? I mean, we just went through this with Australia, and everybody, was quick to say, well, they're not even allowed there, so. Well, just like everything else, laws, just like locks, are only there to keep the honest people honest. And when stuff is outlawed, then only outlaws will have them. So, it's dumb as hell. You can ban stuff until you're blue in the face, but the only people who are going to abide by that ban is the honest folks who weren't a problem in the first place. Again, we can go on about this for days, but I am going to step out of the of the lacquer for a minute, get a breath of fresh air, let the studio hound out, so we'll be back shortly. Hey folks, Ryan here, aka the Fatty with a Natty. Are you a business owner or marketing director looking to explore advertising on the Blowedout Podcast? As we prepare to enter our 4th season, we've gained a listening audience in over 125 cities spread across 21 countries worldwide. That includes a very large listening base right here in northern Utah. To find out how we can help your business grow or to discuss pricing and frequency options, email us at blowedoutpodcast@gmail.com and be sure to include marketing in the subject line. Again, that's blowedoutpodcast@gmail.com, subject marketing. All right, guys, we're back. Now, over the break, I was thinking about it. I need to reiterate that by no means am I advocating, that any of this is okay or any of that stuff before the break is okay. Because at the end of the day, sadly, 2 kids lost a lot. I mean, obviously one lost his life, but the other one just lost the next 35 years of his. It's a lose-lose situation. Unfortunately for the families, one of them is still alive. So, by no means is any of that ever a good option. It's just not. And nowadays, you hear more and more craziness with road rage incidents and, everybody losing their mind about politics and everything else. Good Lord, I've said it before. Let's just all put on some good tunes and have a barbecue. Maybe a couple of cold drinks and just take a breath. Get in the mountains. Just get out, sit on a beach, head for the mountains, wherever is your happy spot. But man, none of this stuff needs to be taking place. It just doesn't. On the plus side, gas is coming down a little bit. So other than apparently losing an Apache to the Middle East nonsense, there possibly seems to be at least some good come out of it all. I won't go down that road a whole bunch again. But at least, things seem to be at least plateauing or even cooling down a little bit, right? Can't be all bad, right? All things aside, even gas prices, there are still folks, and not entirely certain why, but I also pose the question as to why is the reflecting pool or the ballroom or the UFC fight still seemingly a more prevalent issue than all these other things to some folks. Now, don't get me wrong, some of these things I can get on board with. The reflecting pool apparently was full of issues, leaked like a sieve, blah, blah. Okay, it was probably time, so how is that a bad thing? I don't think that was I'm going to do it so they can paint my face on the bottom or anything else. So, if it was just a leaking sieve or, in desperate need of renovation, then why not? The ballroom, as long as it's continued to be funded by private investors or whatever it was originally touted as, in all fairness, me personally, I could give 2 shits. I've been to DC. I've I probably saw it. At the time I was, I don't know, 13 or 14 and couldn't tell you which part of which. I don't know. I looked through the fence and saw what everybody else sees. It's not like any of us are ever going to get to go inside of it or anything else. So as long as it's not coming out of our pockets, who cares? The library thing, or I don't know, whatever the other one where he took, I believe. And you guys know, I try not to follow much of this stuff as closely as others. So, I don't know, whatever he took, I believe FDR's name off of, or the Kennedy Center, and put his name on. Okay, was that, horseshit? Sure. But they've already reversed that, so, okay. There you go. Done. Settled. Whatever. Like I said, a lot of it seems kind of dumb to be worked up about, given all the other, globe-changing things going on. Like, I could give a shit about the ballroom as long as gas gets back to normal and we're not sending troops to be possibly harmed in any way. Again, that's just my standpoint, but I don't understand why folks, much like, what we were talking about before the break, why folks are so wrapped up in that stuff rather than the bigger issues at hand. I don't know. Usually I can't make heads or tails. Heads or cents. Heads or tails of most of it. So I just kind of, trug along over here in what's left over. And I think that most everyone else does too. There's not enough left at the end of the day. Willpower, brain power, energy, any of those things to concern myself with things that may or may not ever affect me. And I think, again, I think a lot of us, not us, obviously, but a lot of folks need to remember and get back to okay, we're just going on about things, and as long as you don't screw us over, then whatever, you're going to do whatever you're going to do, and the next one's going to do whatever they do, and, like I said, as long as it's not coming out of our pockets or hurting our loved ones across the board, across the globe, then I could give a damn. The UFC thing, I think is ridiculous. I'm pretty sure we touched on that. If they want to do it, so what? They're going to trample the lawn, and, in theory, we pay a lot of people probably really good money to have it looking all neat and pretty again within a week anyhow. So, whatever. Have your stupid fight. Hope you get lots of clicks and views. Have fun with that. It sounds like it's probably going to be a rain out anyhow. So, yay, have fun. Womp womp. That's just my take. And, it is what it is. Take it for what it's worth. But there are a lot bigger things on the collective plate to be worried about as a society in general. Is it tacky and look ridiculous? Yes. But again, it'll go away soon. So, whatever. There's a lot of that. There's one of those same claw-looking dumbass things here in northern Utah, down in, I guess technically Draper, at the aquarium. Do I think it's dumb and ridiculous, and they probably spent way too much money of private investors' money on it? Yeah, but they like it, and technically it doesn't bother me. I mean, it looks stupid, and I have to look at it when I drive by, but at the end of the day, it doesn't harm me. It's just like everything else. I saw a thing earlier on social media. I actually went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with it. You guys know me. I love to... I have to get in a little bit of shit talking here and there. So somebody commented and said they had a coworker with some sort of seemingly Nazi or white supremacist looking tattoo. In all fairness, it was. At least as long as the picture was an actual representation of said tattoo. And it sounded like it was, some sort of production facility with a bunch of folks working in it. In northern Utah, it could be Autoliv, it could be Associated Foods, it could be Hershey. It could be a lot of names that they probably don't want me not dropping, but I'm not dropping that because it was the place. I'm just saying a large production facility with lots of folks. And apparently this tattoo is open site for other people in the facility. And one person commented and said that it really bothered them to the point of needing to say something. And they asked if they were in the wrong by asking the person to cover it up. And when the person said that they would not cover it up, if they were somehow, compelled to go to HR or whatever. And I commented because I thought to myself, well, as long as, maybe the dude made some bad decisions in the clink, or, maybe that was a part of their life that is no longer, or maybe it is still their thoughts and beliefs or ideology. But I pose the question of, okay, is this person, and I believe they said it was a dude, so I should feel comfortable saying this dude is just there doing his job. Yet you don't like his tattoo. Yet he is just working away, not spouting off his ideology or, telling people they should join him or anything like that. He just working away, minding his own business. Then why does that bother you so much? And I just like the thing, the claw thingy, big UFC looking structure down in Draper. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean I can't look over as I'm driving past it, think, well, that's a stupid piece of shit, and just keep on driving. And at the end of the day, it doesn't affect me whatsoever. So I pose that question to the person about the tattoo. Like, is dude just doing his job and going on about his life, and somehow you're letting it eat at you because you can see it? Oh, Christ. Well, if that's the case, then I have a problem with about, 2 out of every 5 cars on the road in Weber County, because they're ugly and I don't like what you've done with it. But can I look over and go, oh, Jesus, that's ugly as hell, and drive on, and it absolutely doesn't affect me in any way, shape, or form? Yeah, pretty much. Or, your Honda Civic that you've sawzalled the muffler off of, and you drive past me sounding like, an underwater abortion, and I go, oh, God, that sounds hideous. And then in 14 or 18 seconds, when I can no longer hear you, other than, offending my ear holes, it literally doesn't affect me in any way, shape, or form. Also true. I just don't get it. And I know that social media is mostly to blame for this phenomenon of everyone thinking that they have to call this shit out. 40 years ago, you had to go somewhere and meet up with someone and go, oh my God, bro, you'll never believe what I saw the other day. But it was literally just the people, the couple of dudes that you met up with to have a barbecue or drink beers or whatever. It wasn't literally the entire world on social media that you were telling how offended you were or bothered or turned up by something you saw or heard. Honestly, it's going to be our demise. Don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely guilty of doing it, but at least I can see and realize and understand that, oh, yeah, that's a thing. Oh, yeah, I said something because I can. Doesn't mean I should, but it's going to be our demise, and it certainly doesn't help any way, shape, form with the division. We talk about it a lot on the show, but the division is absolutely going to be our demise, and social media helps it 10,000%. Does that mean I'm going to quit like I should? No, because much like a lot of other things, I'm just as addicted as anyone else. So there are times when I love it, and it's fantastic, and it's basically how we get everything now. Our media, our news, our gossip, our everything, but it's not good. And the data centers and the AI and everything else is just making it absolutely worse. But, like I said, there's a big difference between realizing that there's a problem or just going on about things like this is just normal, everyday, real life. At least if you can acknowledge it and go, damn, yeah, I let that get my blood pressure all up for nothing. That was dumb. Or, the flip side of I'm turned up and I'm going to go run out and scream in the streets, or God forbid worse, because of something I saw on the internet. Hooey, man, I think we need a lot more therapy and a lot less internet. And as you guys know, therapy can be a lot of things, not just actual therapists. But like always, just one fat man's opinion. Anyhow, I believe I have rattled on enough for this week. As always, guys, if you have comments or questions or hate or love or whatever, give us a shout at blowedoutpodcast@gmail.com. As always, would like to give a shout out to our partners, Evolution Design Works and Fine Finishes. Like I said, hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody enjoys the show, or at least can take something away from it. Hell, I don't know. Maybe I'm helping. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm making it worse. But I'll never know unless you tell me. So until next time, guys, keep your heads on a swivel. Be safe out there. The crazies aren't getting any less crazy. Hopefully everything's at least going half decent or getting better in your neck of the woods. And until next time, tell a friend, tell a family member, tell everybody, spread the word to the herd. Spotify, iHeart, YouTube, Amazon, Apple, all of them. And we'll talk to you guys real soon, okay? Love and appreciate y'all. Cheers!